So it's Parshas Balak. The pasuk says, after Balak gave a series of intended klalos which were turned into brachas, he says, "Va'ato," and now hineni hoylech la'ami. I'm going back to my people. Iyotzcha. I'll give you advice. Asher yaseh ha'om hazeh la'amcha ba'achris hayomim. What this people will do to your people in the end of days. So the pasuk is a shver pasuk because it sounds like he's coming to give an eitzah. Iyotzcha. But he doesn't seem to give an eitzah. He says, Asher yaseh ha'om hazeh la'amcha ba'achris hayomim. He's prophesizing about what Yidden will do to them. Ba'achris hayomim. So Rashi says, Asher yaseh ha'om hazeh la'amcha mikra kotzor hu. There's something missing in the pasuk. Mikra kotzor hu ze iyotzcha la'achshilam. I'll give you an eitzah how to be machshil them. There's really two things going on over here. An eitzah, how to be machshil yidden, and another thing is that he's prophesizing about mashehein asidim lahora lemoyav ba'achras hayomim. And so says the Targum, Onkelos, Isa am lechinoch ma de tevet. I'll give you an eitzah what you should do. Va'achviloch, and I will tell you, ma de yaved amohodein la'amoch b'seif yoimayu. So there are two things going on in this pasuk, an eitzah and a nevuah. Now the content of the nevuah of Asher Yaseh Ha'om Hazeh La'amcho Ba'achris Hayomim actually appears in the following psukim. But the eitzah that he gave, the eitzah that Balaam gave, doesn't say in the pasuk b'chlal. What was the eitzah? So that's what Rashi says in the previous Rashi, in the Dibur HaMaschil L'cho Iyotzcha. Rashi says, L'cho Iyotzcha ma l'cho lasis. I'll give you advice, what you should do. U'mahi ha'eitzah, Eloheihem shel elu soinei zimohu v'chulei. K'di isu b'perek chelik. That he gave them an eitzah to be machshil klal yisrael biznus. Teida shebilom heisi eitzah zu lahachshilam bezima sheharei nemar. It says further on in Parshas Matos, hein heina hoyu livnei Yisrael bidvar bilam, that the Bnei Smoyov were machshil the Bnei Yisrael, and that was bidvar bilam. So from there we find out that was the eitzah that he gave. Now, according to the pashtus of the pasuk, when it says "Va'ato hineni hoylech la'ami," it means that I'm going back to my people. He's saying goodbye, and according to that, we understand why now is the time to give eitzes. Now is the time to prophesize about Asher Yaseh Ha'om Hazeh La'amcha Ba'achris Hayomim. However, Rashi in the Dibur HaMaschil Hoylech La'ami says Me'ata Hareini Kishar Ami. That Hoylech La'ami doesn't mean simply that he's going back to his people. Hoylech La'ami means I'm becoming like Shar Ami. Shenistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'alai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mistalik Me'alai, and now I'm just an ordinary Midianite. So according to this, there are two questions over here. First of all, why dafka now that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mistalik Me'alav? Is it the time to give an eitzah, to give this eitzah? And also, I mean, if Nistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'alav and he's Kishar Ami, so what's the pshat that he goes on and he prophesizes about Asher Yaseh Ha'om Hazeh La'amcha Ba'achris Hayomim? So maybe we can suggest that the Nistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'alav just means that he lost his koichoy befiv to curse and to bless, but he's still a Navi, and therefore what he's saying is that from here on I can only observe, I can only prophesize about what's going to happen, but I no longer have the ability to make a difference, to impact what's going to happen. I can't be mashpia on what's going to happen. I can only see it. And therefore, I'm giving you an eitzah because I can't anymore influence what's going to happen with my mouth, but I can give you an eitzah. And why? But why wouldn't he give the eitzah before? It could be that Kolzman he had koichoi befiv, so he was governed by as the pasuk says, aches hadover asher adaber elecha oisoi tase. He couldn't speak freely. And as long as he had that koyach befiv, he couldn't speak freely. But va'ata, that I'm no longer in that position of cursing and blessing. I don't have any more the koichoi befiv. Therefore, it's no longer eis asher osim beficha oisoi tedaber, and therefore I can now talk freely and I can give you an eitzah. But the suggestion l'chara is not correct, because Rashi says that hoylech la'ami means hareini kishar ami, which l'chara means that the nistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu me'olav means completely. And not only did he lose his koichoi befiv to curse and to bless, but he is also not a navi anymore. So, but this is very shver because he goes on and he gives a nevuah. He's saying, Asher yaseh omazela amcha ba'achris hayomim. What's the pshat? So you know that, maybe the pshat is that, this is a very shver shayla, pshuta shel mikra. It could be that the pshat is that even though Nistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu me'olav, he no longer can see the future, but what he saw before, he still knows. And therefore, what he's telling now, Asher Yaseh Omazel Amcha, is based on on a vision that he had before he lost the nevuah. It says in Pasuk Yud Zayin, Ar'enu v'loi ato, Ashurenu v'loi korov, Dorach koichov miyakov, etc. So Rashi says, Royani shivchoi shel Yaakov ugdulosai. Ach lo yato. Elo la'achazman. I see the greatness of Yaakov, but not now. This is something that's going to happen la'achazman. The Ibn Ezra says, Ashurenu v'loi korov hatam koful, meaning that this is l'teferes Amalita. Sometimes the pasuk repeats itself. Ar'enu v'loi ato, Ashurenu v'loi korov. The v'loi ato and the v'loi korov mean the same thing, that it's not happening now, it's happening in the distant future. But maybe we can say, based on the above, that Ar'enu v'loi ato means I see, but I don't see it now. It's something that I saw in the past. And Ashurenu v'loi korov, that means I see into the distant future, but it's not happening now. In other words, the v'loi ata and the v'loi korov mean two different things. The v'loi ata means it's something that I'm not seeing now. It's something that I've seen before. And the v'loi korov means it's happening not now, but it's happening in the distant future. But this is l'chara chiddush, that the pshat is he lost his nevuah, but he's prophesizing based on a vision that he had before. Otherwise, I don't know how to explain it, because Rashi seems to say that he lost his nevuah. Nistalik HaKadosh Baruch Hu me'olav, and he's keshar ami. Yeah. So, and what's the connection of his eitzah to this moment? So we said that since he no longer could influence the future because he doesn't have the koyach of klala and bracha, so now is a time where all he can do is give an eitzah. But maybe we can explain more. We can say that this eitzah has a particular shaykhis to the ato. And it has to be done now. Not before and not later. Only now is the perfect moment to give this eitzah. And why is that? The pasuk says in the end of Chumash Dvorim, Vayikbor oisoi bagai. Moshe Rabbeinu was buried bagai be'eretz Moyov mul beis pa'or. V'lo yoda ish es kfurosoi ad hayoyim hazeh. So Moshe Rabbeinu's makam hakfura is mul beis pa'or. An interesting burial site, Mul Beis Pa'or. Rashi says, Kivroi hoyo muchon sham misheishes yemei bereishes, that was the place where he was meant to be buried, misheishes yemei bereishes. L'chaper al maise Pa'or. V'zeh echad min hadvarim shenivru be'erev Shabbos bein hashmoshes. The Makar Advarim is incited af Yudalid v'omer Reb Chama b'Rabbi Chanina mipnei ma nikbar Moshe eitzel beis Pa'or kedei l'chaper al maise Pa'or. There's a fascinating Tosfos over there that brings Midrash Agoda b'chol shana v'shana be'eis shechotu Yisrael b'bnois moyav b'oisei perik beis Pa'or. So on the yard site of on every year on the anniversary of the time that Klal Yisrael was choyte b'avoin Pa'or, so the base Pa'or is oilo l'maylo kedei lekatreg ulahazkir avoin ukshehu roya kivrei shel Moshe choyte b'shikeh sheMoshe Rabbeinu shik oy bekarka ad choytmoy. Moshe Rabbeinu made him sink into the karka until his nose. V'chol shosha oila choyte v'nishkal l'mokim sheshikoy Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see that Moshe Rabbeinu in particular has the koyach to be mishakeya the Pa'or and to be mechaper on the avoin Pa'or, and that's why he was buried mul beis Pa'or. Obviously, this needs to be explained. Probably we can't explain. It's in the stories Lashem Elokeinu, but nevertheless, on our level, maybe we can say something about this. You know, further on in the parsha, it says, "Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim, vayochel ha'am liznois el benois moyav, vatikreno lo'am lezivchei Eloheihen, vayochel ha'am vayishtachavu le'Eloheihen, vayitzomeid Yisrael lebalpor." So we see that the Avera of Avodah Zarah of Pa'or came behemshich to the Vayiznu Yisrael b'bnois moyav. As Rashi says, "Vayishtachavu le'Eloheihen kishetokaf Yitzroi olav v'omar lo hishami li himoitzio lo idmus Pa'or micheika v'oimeres lo hishtachavu lozeh." So, what's the particular shaykhis between this Avodah Zarah of Pa'or with Znus? I mean, what is this Avodah Zarah of Pa'or? You know, Rashi says, "Al shem shepoyarin lefonav piat habas u'moitziin rei v'zoyi avodosa." No, Avada, this is kind of mind-boggling. What kind of a worship was this to be poyarin lefonav piat habas u'moitziin rei v'zoyi avodosa? You know, the pasuk begins this parsha with Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin Daf Kuvav b'Shittim. Rebbe Lezer oimer Shittim Shema, that was the name of that area. Rebbe Yeshua oimer shenis asku b'divrei shtus. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says l'fisha hamokoim mitiv oy l'oire teva hatayva habahamis. This was a place that had a teva of being ma'oirer teva hatayva habahamis. V'lir l'farish ha'posik yo'id sibas haznus shehoisa l'fisha yotzu ha'om l'tayel chutz l'machne Yisrael. They walked out of the boundaries of the Machne Yisrael. V'shom nimtzu b'nois moyav. V'hu oimrei vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim. Says the Orach Chaim Pirush shehoyu metaylin boy chutz l'machneim v'Shittim hu loshen tiyulim. Shittim is a loshen of going out and going out of the shita, going out of the line. Shittim is a loshen of shoitatus. Like it says in Parshas Balak, "Choshotu ha'am v'loktu," and Rashi says, "Ein shayit ela loshen tiyul." Says the Orach Chaim, "V'zehu sibas vayochel ha'am liznais." So Shittim is a loshen of shoitatus and shtus, which means the yitzia from the shita. You know, the Rashi says in Parshas Truma, Chav Zayin Gimel, that in Loshen HaKodesh there are words that are meshamish binyan ustira, like lahashrish means to plant and lasharish means to uproot. So Shittim and Shittim as a shita and shita as shoitatus, which is the anti-shita, are really the same word. it would seem that the Anshe Shittim, they turned shoitetus and shtus. Shtus means really going beyond the boundaries, going beyond the limits, going beyond the shita. They turned that into a shita. In other words, Shittim was the shita of no shita. Shittim was the shita of not having a shita b'chlal. And the idea was that in terms of the self-actualization of the self, if you consider the self to be the nefesh habahamis, so you really have to have no control of the self. There are no boundaries and there are no limits. Whatever is natural is divine. Whatever urge one has is the way to go. In other words, that was the pritza of all gedorim. That's the idea of shittim. That's the idea of shtus. And memela, there's a connection between the znus and the avodah zarah of pa'or, because if you are koifer in boundaries, you're koifer in self-control, and it's any urge you have, you let go. So the pshat is that's also the avodah zarah, the idea of worshiping the pa'or with piyat abbas moitzi rei, is that if it's natural, it's holy. If it's natural, it's right. That's all part of the Shittim syndrome. Now, the pasuk says earlier in our parsha, Vayokom Balaam baboiker, vayachboish es asoinoi. Rashi says, Vayachboish es asoinoi mikan shahasina mikalkeles es ashura. The hatred, made him go beyond the limits, beyond the boundary. Shechovash hu ba'atzmoi. Balaam was a respectable person. It wasn't something for him to do. Vayachboish es asoinoi, but sinna mikalkeles es ashura. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rosho, kvar kodmecho Avram aviem. Shenema vayashkem Avram baboiker, vayachboish es chamoiroi. So Rashi over there on vayachboish es chamoiroi, what does Rashi say? Hu ba'atzmoi. Avram Avinu himself was vayachboish es chamoiroi. V'lo yitzivo la'echad me'avodo. She'ahava mikalkeles es ashura. So you see that both sinna is mekalkel es ashura, and Ava is mekalkel es ashura. But the truth is that even the Ava, in sense of Avas Hashem, is mekalkel es ashura. There's a danger in the kilkel ashura. And therefore, Avram Avinu's nisayon only becomes complete. His Amida ben nisayon only becomes complete when he's told by the Malach, Al tishlach yodcha el anar, va'al tas loy me'uma. Ki ato yodati ki arei Eloikim ato. Only with the tziruf of the yira, together with the ahava, and knowing when to stop, that is what preserves the ahava and keeps it in the right place. Because ahava that knows no limits is also dangerous, as we know that in Arayis it says chesed hu. That's chesed is ahava, but it's ahava without boundaries. That's the inyan of Yishmael that we are told by Chazal that it's he's the psoilus of the midas hachesed of Avram Avinu, and that's why when they were told loy sinov, they refused to be mikabel the Torah. That's the psoilus of the midah of ahava, and that's why even though oilam chesed yiboneh, but l'cho Hashem hagdula, which is chesed v'hagvura, which is the antithesis to chesed. Because chesed and gvura have to go together, ava and yira have to go together. Vayomer Elokim yehi rokia. Rashi says yischazek harokia. She'afal pi shenivru shamayim b'yoyim rishon adayim lachim hoyu v'korshu b'sheni migaras HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'omroi yehi rokia. Oilam chesed yiboneh, but there has to be a krisha, and the krisha is through yira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's gara, and that's the Yiras Shamayim. So now in Brachas Daf Zayin, the Gemara says, "Umi iker rische kamei kutshe berichu." Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu get angry? The Gemara says, "In The Tanya is a brisa that says V'kel zoyim b'chol yom. So he's zoyim. The kama za'amoy, for how long? Rega. The kama rega, the Gemara explains. The ein kol biryo yechoylo lechavein oisa shah. Nobody can identify that moment of zam. Chutz mi bilam harosha. The ksiv bei v'yoidei das elin. And that's referring to his ability to be mechaven es hashah. The Gemara says, because hashta das behemtoy lo have a yoda, das elyon have a yoda. But now that we understand the answer, I mean, das behemtoy lo have a yoda, das elyon have a yoda. The Gemara says, no, he didn't know das elyon, but this he did know. He knew how to be mechaven es hashah, even though das behemtoy lo have a yoda. V'hainu the amalu hu navi li Yisrael. Zok the Gemara, Ami zecharno ma yoatz Balak. This week's Haftarah. And it says over there, Laman das tzidkos Hashem. This will remind us of the tzidkos Hashem. Amar Rebbe Elazar, Amar LaMakadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, Du'u, kama tzedakos asisi imachem, sheloi ka'asti b'mei Balaam, harasha. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu held back from that zam, which is a daily affair, but during the time that Balaam was Isaac, in being Mekalal Yidin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu held back from that zam. That's the kamotz dokos asisi imachem shaloi ka'asti b'mei Balaam harasha. Shilamoli ka'asti lo nishtayim misenem shel Yisrael soradu polit. V'hainu dika'amalei Balaam lebolok mo ekoiv lo kaboy keil umo ezam lo zoam Hashem melamed shekol oisam hayomim lo zoam. So during this time period, HaKadosh Baruch Hu refrained from being zoyim, even though it's a daily affair. There's a very interesting malbim in a Sefer Eretz Chemda that says, Vayichar af Elokim ki hoylechu. So Pashup Pshat is Hashem was upset, was angry that Balaam is going, but he says, Ukvar omdu hamafarshim, haloi kein tziva loy leilech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to go, so why is he getting angry? See, he says a very interesting pshat. The fact that there's a moment of anger every day, of divine anger, that's something that has to be in the Bria. Din v'rachamin. The morning is a time of chesed. So it has to be balanced by the midah of af. V'hine, says the Malbim, Bilam al yidei shaholach mona mimidas ha'af menas chelkoi. He didn't allow for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's af to be displayed during this time period. Shekol oisan hayomim lo zoam lezeh vayichar af Elokim. The af Elokim was upset ki hoylechu because he had to go away. That's what the Malbim teaches. Vayichar af Elokim ki hoylechu, because the af couldn't express itself, and memela vayichar af Elokim. Shehola al yidei kein lo yitnu lo monosoi harega kasher hugbal b'chochmosoi yizborech habilti bal tachlis. So you see that the zam and the af are necessary in order to balance the chesed, in order to prevent the kilkul of chesed, of ava that's not balanced by yira. And therefore, since during these days of Balaam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't Zion, that opened up an opening for the kilkul Ashura of Liznois es Bnois Moyav Bashittim, which is the psoilus of Chesed. And that's what Balaam said to Balak, Va'ato, hineni hoylech la'ami, l'choi yotzcha. The eitz is shaykh to the ato, to the right now, because this is a time when there's a chisaron of the midas ha'af, a chisaron of the midas ha'yira, There's no Zam of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this is an opportunity to be Machshil Klal Yisrael in the B'nai Smoyov in the Psoilos Midas HaChesed, which is the kilkul of the Shura. Because just like Sinah is Mekalkulas Ashura, Ava is Mekalkulas Ashura, and here where the Ava was not balanced by the Zam of HaKadosh Baruch Hu during this time, it was an opportunity to be Machshil B'nai Yisrael B'nai Smoyov. And with this, we can understand why Moshe Rabbeinu Dafke is the one that's Mishakeya, the base Pa'or, and he's the Mechaper on the Avoin Pa'or, because, it says, Va'ato Yisrael, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoyel Me'imach, Ki Im L'Yira, as Hashem Elokecha. The Gemara says in Brachos Daf Lamed Gimel, Otu Yiras Shomayim, Milse Zutra Sehi. The Gemara says, In L'Gabi Moshe, Milse Zutra Sehi. So Moshe is the embodiment of Yiras Shomayim, and therefore, because of him, Yiras Shamayim is considered Milsa Zutra to all Yidden. So Moshe Rabbeinu makes present the Gara of Yehira Kia B'Soich HaMayim, which makes the Mayim be Nikrash. And therefore his Kvura is Mul Beis Pa'or. Mul Beis Pa'or, which is the opposite of the Yira. The Rambam in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah Perek Beis says, "V'heichu yaderech la'avosei v'yirasei." How does a person bring himself to Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem? B'shoshi yitzboinen ha'adam b'ma'asov ubruav hanifloim hagdolim v'yira mehem chochmasei she'ein lo erech v'lo kates miyad hu oyev u'mushabeach u'mefor, etc. U'keshemechashev b'dvarim ha'elu atzmon. When he's thinking about these things, Hu nirsa la'achorov, v'yorei, v'yafached, v'yoidea shehu bria ktana, shfela, afela, oimed bedas kala mu'uta l'fnei tmim deis. So, the more base part of Kfuras Moshe Rabbeinu, and the v'lo yoda ishes kfurosoi, abem shayich adodi, because the Yira, which is a milsa zutra selagabe Moshe, is connected with the recognition that we're oimdim lefonav bedas kala ma'uta v'lo yodaish. Now, in the Sefer Asorim Amoris of the Ramami Fano, in the Maimon Chikur Adin Chelik Gimel Perik Hey, he brings in the name of the Meir Sisrei Torah that just like in the Tzadak Dusha, there's Moshe Milagav, the Yaakov Milabar, there's Moshe on the inside, this is Kabbalistic, and Yaakov on the outside, so also there's in Tumah, Balaam Milagav, the Amalek Milabar, somehow saying that Balaam is the outside of Amalek. And he says that Behischalif habeis shel Balaam im hakuf shel Amalek ba'alfa beis ha'yadua, that there's a certain seder of aleph beis where beis and kuf are mischalif. So then you see that Balaam and Amalek are really the same word because the beis and the kuf is mischalif. That was in the Medrash Rabbah in Esther, it says, Vayovei Amalek mehechon bo me'etzel Balaam arasha. So you see in the Medrash that Amalek and Balaam are shayach adodi. They say in the name of Reb Shimshon Me'estrapolya, in the name of the Arizal, that if you put the words Balaam on top and Amalek on the bottom, Lamashal, you can do the opposite also. So you see the Beis Lamed on top of the Ayin Mem. The Balaam and Amalek, you have a Beis Lamed on top of an Ayin Mem. That makes Balaam. And on the other side, you have an Ayin Mem on top of the Lamed Kuf. So that makes Amalek, which again represents the idea that Amalek and Balaam are one Inyan. Now, the same thing is with the words Yira and Ahava. Because, if you write Yira and on bottom Ahava, so the Yud Reish could be mitzurif with the Aleph Hey of Ahava, and it makes Yira. And the Aleph Hey of Yira could be mitzurif with a Beis Hey of Ahava, and you have Ahava. So the thing is like this, that's the Milagav and Milabar, Moshe and Yaakov against Amalek and Balaam, which is Yira and Ahava, and that together overcome Balaam and Amalek, and as we see by Amalek, V'lo Yirei Elokim, according to one of the Pshatim is going on Amalek, that he's the antithesis of the Midas Hayira, And you see by Milchemes Amalek, it says, V'hoya kashe yorim Moshe yodoi v'gova Yisrael, and the bittul of Amalek in the Tkufa of Haman is in the Yerech Shenoilad Boy Moshe, and the Yerech Shemez Boy Moshe, and Lo Yodei Eshes Kfurosoi, which is connected with the Tvura of Moshe Rabbeinu Mul Beis Por. In the beginning of Parshas Pinchas, it says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Heishiv es Chamosi me'al b'nei Yisrael, Bekano es Kinasi b'soichem. Rashi says, Bekano es Kinasi, Benokmoi es Nikmasi, Bekotzvoi es HaKetzef, Shehoyo li Liktzoif. Kolosh in Kine, hu ha-meschare, Limkoim Nikmas Dova. So, according to this, the pshat is because this was a time when the Zam of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not being displayed, because it was the time of Balaam. And as Chazal say, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wasn't Zion. So, that's when Moshe Rabbeinu stood up, and he was Koitzef, the Ketzef, Shehoyo Li Liktzoif. And that's Heishiv es Chamosi Me'al B'nei Yisrael. Anyway, bottom line is, there has to be balance. Like everything, anything that's taken out of proportion loses its meaning and is dangerous. And Yiddishkeit is all about balance. And in the right context, everything takes on the right meaning. And without context, it's Shittim, Shoitetus, and Rabbi Say, I wish you all a guten Shabbos. And everything good. Okay.